All right, sounds like everybody's the conversation's dying down, so maybe a good time that we go ahead and kick this off. So thank you, first of all, for everybody coming out on this hot evening. At least very thankful for air conditioning in here. So, but again, thanks for coming. We hope tonight is informative for you. Some people know a lot. Some people, this is maybe their first time, but we hope tonight, whichever boat you're in, that it is informative for you. You learn about wind energy, about wind turbines, and the effect that it can have on community and people. So I'll kick it off with a few slides, and then I'll turn it over to some of our other speakers. First, let me introduce myself. I don't know if everybody knows me. Fred's had me in the paper a lot, but I am Kelly Childs, and my husband and I live northwest of Belleville. And we got involved in this starting back in probably March. And I think we have Jonathan Sill to thank for putting that original map that was in the telescope. And I think that just opened our eyes. We're like, whoa, this is going to change our county. So a few of us got together back in March, just started chatting about it, had concerns, and from there gave several presentations to the commissioners. And then our group has been meeting weekly, just trying to figure out the best way that we can protect our community from wind turbine development, specifically the health, safety, and welfare of Republic County citizens. So first, I want to just go over just project overview. Maybe I need to get onto a slideshow here. So in the Republic County side, we're looking at 185 plus wind turbines, 580 foot tall. These would be the tallest structures in Kansas. So not just one structure, 185 of the tallest structures in Kansas, with some more on the Washington County, looking around about 20 turbines on the Washington County side. As far as leaseholders, 40% of the leaseholders live out of county or out of state. So they're not impacted. They don't have to live by these wind turbines. And only about 10 landowners signed up the land where they live. So only 10 people said, yeah, I'm willing to take this on around my home. I talked a little bit, timeline, I guess. That map came out in March because the NextEra is the wind developer, for those who you don't know. They're a multi-billion-dollar company based out of Juno Beach, Florida, with the top 3 shareholders of J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and State Street are the top 3 shareholders, just so you know, of NextEra. So our group was formed in April. We asked the commissioners for a moratorium. Moratorium just puts a delay on any wind turbine development. It lets the county get protections put in place on how they're going to handle wind turbine development. We also asked for public forums and a wind ordinance to be put in place, again, to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Republic County. During this time, the commissioners also received permits from NextEra. So there's a handful of permits that the commissioners, that's what they've been going through over these past couple of months. Conditional use permits, roads permit, those are the top 2. There's a few others I couldn't name. Matt, could you name them? There's a handful of permits that NextEra and our commissioners have been negotiating on. So our commissioners got those in the April timeframe. We never got a word back from our commissioners until we formally asked them, will you do a moratorium? And they said they would not. They said they felt like they were doing a moratorium just by taking their time going through those permits. But a moratorium is really beneficial because it doesn't let any wind turbine activity continue. The wind developer has to stop until the county gives them the okay to go ahead, and the county has a plan in place on how they're going to handle wind turbine industrial development. So we're up to June. Into June, commissioners said that they have gone through all their permits and made changes, and they have given it back to NextEra. So that's where we're at with commissioners and the permits and the negotiations going on with NextEra. And I will continue where we're at the very end of our time here together this evening on where we're at with timeline. So economic boom or bust. If you want a very detailed presentation on the economics of this project, my husband did a very thorough explanation of the economics to the commissioners back in April. And I have that presentation if you like it afterwards. But I boiled it down to about 4 points here. Sorry, need a lot of water when I start talking a lot. So the first one. So we've had, this is going to be great big money for Republic County. But look at that first one. 0.47% GDP of Republic County between the lease payments and the pilot payments. And the pilot payments, pilot stands for payments in lieu of taxes. So right now, I just want to talk through this a little bit. Wind turbine developments have had a lifetime tax abatement. I can't tell you when that went into effect. Lisa Mosier might be able to tell me, but early 2000, I'm going to say. Anyway, so they have not been paying property taxes. They had a lifetime. That got changed, and now there's a 10-year tax abatement for wind turbine developments in Kansas. The lifetime ended in 2016 or 2017, so now we're into the 10-year tax abatement. But no wind turbine project has ever paid property taxes in Kansas. No wind turbine project has ever paid property taxes in Kansas, which mostly that is due to the lifetime tax abatement. But what we have found with these wind companies is they will sell very quickly. The one over in Marshall County that just went live in December 2021, it has already sold, Jonathan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, 50% to a teachers Canadian union. What was it called? A pension fund for a Canadian teachers union. So what happens is these wind developers will sell these projects every few years, and then another one will buy it. So they're just depreciating. So they depreciate, and then the next one buys it, and then they depreciate. So when it comes time to pay property taxes in the county that they're in, there's not very much left for them to pay property taxes on. The estimated pilot payments based on, my husband Kurt just based on it, looking at Marshall County, because Marshall County also had NextEra that they had come in there to build the turbines over there. So based on what happened and the pilot payments that Marshall County got, comparing that to our project's going to be would be a little bit bigger than Marshall County's, the one that just went live, amounts to 40 cents per citizen per day. Not very much money, really. And as we know, anytime government gets money, it doesn't just go. It's not like we all get a check in the mail, right? It's a funnel effect. There's these pet projects that get the money. We don't all get the benefit of these property taxes. And when government gets more money, they become bigger government. Is that what we want? Revenue. When it all comes down to it, NextEra gets 97% and Republic County gets 3%. Does that seem like a fair deal? Okay, I am going to stop there. You'll hear from me again at the end. But I'm going to turn it over now to Jonathan Sill. He is from Marshall County. He lives near the Marshall County development that just went in back in 2021. He's going to be speaking more, though, just about wind energy and its impact on your electrical cost. He's a wealth of knowledge, so please welcome Jonathan Sill. I don't know how to do that. What do you need?
PDF.
Okay, I'll pull it up if you want to start.
Well, hello. All right, hi. My name's Jonathan Sill. I'm from. I live over in Frankfurt. Kind of got involved in this. Can everybody hear me? All right. That better? All right. That's not speaking in a microphone very often. Let me get my stuff here. Sorry, I'm a little late in traffic and all that stuff. I got involved in wind farm about 2019 when the Irish Creek project started over in Marshall County. Heard about it. Coming in and had some questions, went and talked to the project managers, all that stuff. The more I dived into it, the more I wasn't really on board with it. But the more research I did, the more I come across just things that I didn't really agree with, but I also have a background. I used to build electrical substations, and so I've built substations strictly to put wind farm energy onto the grid in Oklahoma and Texas. So I kind of have a working knowledge of that part of the industry. But talking to why the costs are going up. I had some visuals here, but without internet access, I can't really show you some of the stuff. But the Southwest Power Pool is the big player when it comes to electricity in this part of the country. It's a 14-state group. They go from Canada all the way down into North Texas. And every year they put out a state of the market report. I come across this when I was doing my initial research, and I've read the 2016 to the one that just come out this year, 2021, and every year there is they just repeat themselves almost every year dealing with wind farms. With wind farm energy on the market, it drives the cost of electricity down to the point because it's cheaper to generate with a wind farm than it is with a coal plant or a natural gas plant. And another problem is it's intermittent. So you get basically you have to have two grids. You have to have a grid that does your base load, and then you have to have the wind for the wind on it. Now it uses the same power line infrastructure, but when you have an overabundance of wind, it creates congestion points. And those congestion points are where you have problem, and it drives the costs and everything up. So, is it working? Okay. Sorry, I seem a little disorganized here. I was really hoping to have the internet. I was going to show you guys some really cool stuff, but yeah, it's all right. I just skipped to some other stuff here. The executive summary on their 2021 report had some rather interesting statements. They had many of the themes that were identified in previous years' reports, such as increased wind generation, make-whole payments, negative prices, continue to deepen in 2021. Wind generation continues to play an increasing role in the Southwest Power Pool's markets. This has produced many challenges, including increasing variability and, oh, hey, it's working. Yay. Okay. In supply, uncertainty supply, and market actions ensure reliability. The day ahead is they break their market down into two different groups: the day ahead market and the real time market. Every day they will forecast what they're going to generate for the next day, and then when that day comes is the real time markets, the differences in price. The day ahead and real time market prices increase. The average day ahead price was $27 per megawatt hour, and the average real time price was $25. But when you with the winter event in 2021, the price was a 50% increase. If you include the winter event, the price was from 63 megawatt hour for real time and 37 for the real time was 37 and the day ahead was 63. That's a 250 and 120% increase from the year before. Now, they tied a large part of that price increase to the rise in gas. And I listened to a seminar that the Southwest Power Pool put on talking about the effects of the winter storm on their overall market. And they did say that in our market up here, North Dakota and all that, that the wind performed very close to what they thought it should perform for that time of the year. It's when you go down into Texas is where they started having the big problems and stuff that we all saw on the news of the frozen turbines and all that stuff. Shifting back to my thing here, this is a really cool website. This is put on by the USGS. This is a wind turbine database. You can sit here and zoom in. This is Kansas. These are all the wind turbines farms in the state. You can zoom in. Oh, crap. Here is the Irish Creek Wind Farm. Here's the Soldier Creek Wind Farm. And then Washington and Belleville, where we're at. Of course, you guys know that that'll be all in through this area. This is a really cool website. I mean, you can scroll out. I mean, right now we're looking at, just on the screen, there is 1,276 turbines with a potential generating capacity of 2,600 megawatts of power. So that power is, like I said, the congestion points and stuff, they have to get it out to the customer. And the problem with where a lot of the wind farm, where it's great, like here, all the power for these wind farms that they're building here, and then potentially this one, is all going to go over here to Lansing, Evergy substation by Lansing, and then from there it's going to go on to the overall grid, sold to the highest bidder pretty much. The Irish Creek Wind Farm, this last fall, was announced that Amazon Energy, Jeff Bezos, is buying all the power that it generates to carbon offset all of his plants and stuff around. Next, when I was talking about... That's not what I want. PDF. Yeah, could you bring that up again? Okay. Go to the Southwest Power Pool Center. Yeah. There it is. Okay. All right. This website right here, I encourage everybody to go to. A lot of the information that I have been talking about tonight, and all of my research in regards to the big picture of wind energy comes from the Southwest Power Pool website here. This is it's really user-friendly and stuff, but it's a lot of really cool information. The wind generation mix right there shows you what the current mix is, amount of coal that's being used, the amount of wind that's being used, solar, all that. The price contour map, that gives you in 5-minute intervals what the real-time price is that the market is cost of electricity generation in this market. All of the state of the market reports that I got are from this website, and it's very, very neat. I've even gone through their registration process, and I've been sending questions back and forth, and all of their staff have been really nice. Shifting to go back to that. Bring up the 2021 right there. The information that I really want to talk about as far as the State of the Market Report, the 2021, I said earlier that a lot of what they've been talking about over the past, since 2016, is the volatility of wind on the market as far as its variability. They have much more congestion right now because of the amount of wind, and it's up over 2.5 times of what it was a year prior. A lot of this real-time price, they can't forecast it as accurately as they would like, and right now wind is setting the price. And another problem that they've started to notice is because of the prices of wholesale electricity right now is so low, it's not supporting any maintenance or limited maintenance, but new coal plants or fossil fuel plants of any type. So you've got an aging coal fleet that they're using now that's about 40% of what they're generating, and then wind is just growing and growing and growing. So you add that, and then the current accreditation processes, because it's a very long process to build a wind farm and get it put onto the grid. Their accreditation process is kind of overstating what the wind farms are going to put onto the system. So you've got, let's say it's 300 megawatt generation, but during any given day it's half that, 3/4 that, or whatever, and not being able to generate what the nameplate says it was is going to undercut the market, and they're going to have generation problems. Also another big thing is the congestion at the floodgates. That Southwest Power Pool is primarily the center part of the United States. MISO is their peer to the east, and they transfer power back and forth. During the winter storm event, the MISO was transferring power to us, to the SPP, a lot, enough so that we did have some rolling blackouts. They had load shed about 1.5% day one and 6% day two. But because of the amount of power we were able to get from MISO, that those were very smaller outages. Now, the other problem we have that they've noticing is increased price volatility because of winds is not on the day-ahead markets. So it's driving it up and down. They're not really getting it there. And then Evergy, which Evergy isn't out this way, is it? No. Well, Evergy just had a rate increase for their residential and their industrial and commercial customers, but they are the largest supplier of power to the Southwest Power Pool, and there has been talks over the past couple of years of NextEra wanting to buy out Evergy. And if that happens, it'd be very interesting to see as far as the amount of wind farm, because then they would get public utility status in the state, so they would be able to potentially do eminent domain things right now. They are currently in talks to get a wind farm, not a wind farm, but a transmission line built from Wolf Creek Power Plant over into Missouri, and they're petitioning the Kansas Corporation Commission to get public utility status in order to build that line. Okay, let's go to... this seam study right there. All right, this right here is another Southwest Power Pool document, but this is a joint venture that they did with MISO, and this basically is a year-long review to see how better they could connect each other's grids together. And in doing this, they discovered that there are 7 points where they could tie into each other, and it would alleviate a lot of congestion issues between transferring from their separate RTOs. In doing this, there is a potential for, they said, immediately 28 gigawatts of power, up to 53 gigawatts of power that could potentially be transferred. And this is basically untap the green energy, the wind energy potential from this part of the country all the way up to Canada, North Dakota, South Dakota, all that, because there's a massive wind potential up there. And then bring up, let's see, I'm taking too long on this, so do this one right here. Now this one right here is a story off Energy Wire, but going off of the seam study that I just had up here, this talks about the study and all that. But what I found really interesting in this article here is one of our Kansas Corporation commissioners, Andrew French, was quoted as to saying that this is the proof of concept of what we're trying to do here, and basically the amount of their Southwest Power Pool is working with various government institutions and stuff to try and untap the nation's green energy potential here, which is all fine and good, but if you don't have the proper infrastructure behind it, it's going to drive up the price volatility and everything that I mentioned earlier. Scroll down a little bit. There you go. Now the Grainbelt Express, I'm sure you guys have heard of that one. This is, I don't know, okay, I'll give you a quick overview. You want to scroll down? All right, the Grainbelt Express is a high-voltage DC transmission line that they're looking to build around the Dodge City, Spearville area, and then it will come up, and it'll just east of us, but it'll follow 36, and it'll go all the way over into Illinois. That's Phase 2. Phase 1, we'll park it in Missouri. The interesting thing about this is it started off as a clean line, it wasn't Grainbelt originally, but it was a clean energy company or whatever. But they ran out of money because it's very hard to build infrastructure like this, and they were bought out by Invenergy. And this will be a high voltage DC line, but they applied to the Kansas Corporation Commission initially way back in 2012, and they got public utility status. So they are able to use eminent domain to get ground for this transmission line. This line will be, like I said earlier, high voltage DC. It'll take wind energy around the Spearville area of all those massive farms down there, and it will send it over into Missouri. Now, Missouri, they had a lot of landowners that took them to court over it because they said you can't use eminent domain to take my land here when it's not going to serve the local good here. It's going to serve people hundreds of miles away. And originally, this wasn't going to be a two-way power line. It was just strictly going to be sending power east. Well, after those court cases and stuff, they did lose. They did get power for eminent domain, but they kind of changed gears, and supposedly 50% of that power is going to be in Missouri now. But they also changed it to where if they need to, they can reverse it and send power back this way to Kansas. But they also came out just a few days ago and said that they're going to up the capacity of the line by 25%. So now it's going to be sending 5,000 volts of DC power, wind power, out of the state, which we won't see any revenue off of that. Now this is in regards to the Blackberry Wolf Creek line that I mentioned earlier that NextEra got the tap to go ahead and do. Wolf Creek Power Plant over by Burlington, that's one of the congestion areas for a lot of the wind farms, the potential wind farms in that part of the state. So the Southwest Power Pool decided that they needed a transmission line to go from that substation, that area, east into Missouri to help alleviate their national grid picture. So they put this out there. Evergy tried to build the line, but NextEra ended up winning the contract for it. And NextEra is, like right now, trying to petition the Corporation Commission to get public utility status to do this, because there's a lot of people against this line down there, because rightly so, this is just sending power out of the state, could potentially drive our rates up, and most of the Evergy customers will end up paying for it. But our interesting thing, the Corporation Commission, there's 3 members, and one of them dissented on this because there's a group of businesses, lobbyists in Topeka that wanted to, like, hey, we don't need this. We want to be able to fight this in the governing body, the Corporation Commission. And the 2 of the commissioners voted restrictions on how much Kansas businesses can fight this in the procedures that the Corporation Commission has up. I thought that was very, very interesting. Okay, and we're going back to the Southwest Power Pool. This is their generator interconnection active request list. I found this kind of early on when I was doing some of my research. I found it very interesting. Basically, this is every project from 2000 to what was applied to be built this year, 2022. I kind of filtered it down for just Kansas. From 2001 to 2022, there were 428 projects of varying degree: coal, gas, wind, solar, hydro, thermal. From 2016 to 2022, it whittles down to 188 projects. Of those 188, 51 were withdrawn, 4 have interconnection agreements executed but are on suspension because of varying issues. 2 have interconnection agreements pending. 11 have IAs executed and on schedule. The High Banks Wind Farm is one of those, and there is another project down in Cloud County that is listed as a interconnection agreement signed and on schedule to build. 5 of these are executed and in commercial operation. The Irish Creek Wind Farm and Soldier Creek Wind Farm are 2 of those. And there are 115 different projects in what they call the study stage, or the DI-SIS stage. Now, it sounds like a lot of projects, but if you really add up the potential generating capability of all those projects, it's 35,824 megawatts. The state of Kansas, the federal government has the state of Kansas listed as only being able to generate a little under 17,000 megawatts at peak summertime generation capability. So we are potentially looking to, more than double what we have. And that'll be by, most of the dates on these are out to 2027 or so. So in a short time frame, we're looking to more than double what we can produce in Kansas, but yet we are not expected to have enough growth to use all that power. So all this power is going to be, what we don't use will be exported out of state. And with that amount of power, it leads back to what I was talking about in the very beginning, the volatility of the markets and stuff. If it's so up and down and, the congestion and everything, they need to build these transmission projects to get it to the people, to places where it could be used. And you'll just have more price swings and stuff, especially with the aging coal fleets we have now. And also with the wind side of it, the DIS stage, there were 32 projects. I broke it down by the generation type: wind, solar, battery. On the DIS stage, there were 32 projects, and I figured 300 megawatts roughly per wind farm. So of those 7,000 megawatts, you're looking at 23 projects or 23 facilities, and I averaged out about 110 turbines per farm. We're looking at another potentially 2,600 more turbines to be built in the state if they were all 115 projects of these go all the way to fulfillment. Now you add on top of that about the 4,000 that we have right now, which, okay, well that's a lot of wind turbines. But then you stop and think of what's happening in this community and all the other communities of all the projects that are on there now. Can you right now the state of Kansas has about 4,000 turbines, so imagine another 2,000 or so put on there. One of the projects within the Medicine Lodge area down there, it's red kind of going to green, there was a potential for another 1,100 wind turbines is where one of the things I had there was 3 different projects down there. 500 megawatts. And then solar is really coming on strong right now, too. The way the solar is lined out, there were 49 projects, a little over 11,000 megawatts, and I divided that out, 300 megawatts per farm. There were 36 farms, and judging by what the main, like NextEra's and Apex and those guys are doing right now for the size of their solar farms for that type of generation, about 2,000 acres per 300 megawatts of generation, you're looking at over 73,000 acres of ground to be used up for solar panels, or 115 square miles, or about 15% of Republic County, potentially. If you were to take 15% of the county, but also that's about how much ground they would need to build all these that they have listed right now. So with that, I think I'm done. I'll hang around for questions and stuff. Sorry, I'm a little disoriented here, but I say there's just so much information on this. It's really hard to streamline and get out there, but thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Just so to, give him a round of applause. Yeah. So to summarize, it looks like from listening to you, they're trying to get Kansas to be an energy provider, whereas we have been an agricultural state. Yes. So what do we want our future to be? Let's try this one. That better? Okay, so thank you, Jonathan. Diving into the details there a little bit about wind energy, and it's kind of concerning. The Grain Belt Express was very concerning to Kurt and I when we found out about that, and obviously, right, when you start throwing out eminent domain, things get kind of scary. So we need to be cautious, and we need to stay tuned of what's going on. So next, I want to introduce our speakers from Missouri. They made a drive, 5 hours, 6 hours, 5 hours. They are from Northeast Missouri. They live among 175 turbines that are 500 feet tall. So they are going to tell you what life is like living among wind turbines. So please welcome Carrie Marsh and Nakila Blessing.
Good evening. I'm Nakila, and this is Carrie. And we call our presentation The Reality of Misinformation. And the reason that we do that is because more recently, pro-wind, pro-renewable, pro-green energy advocates have decided that people like us that speak out against wind are passing along misinformation. So what we're going to share with you tonight is our reality of all this misinformation. And we just feel like this quote says a lot about kind of what we've been through. One day you will tell your story of how you've overcome what you are going through now, and it will become part of someone else's survival guide. So we really hope that what we can share with you guys can make a difference with your fight to stop this project.
Hi, everybody. So this is my home, that little blue dot, somewhat in the middle. This wall to the west is our main problem. We built this house about 4 years ago. My husband grew up on this land. We have 3 boys, and we farm there. My husband is also a police officer. And so we were offered a contract in 2018, and they proposed verbally for us to have 3, which would have been about $40,000 a year for us, which, of course, our farm could use. I'm not for sure that there's any farm that couldn't use that. But we right away, it became very obvious that there was a lot of things that they were not being honest with us about, and that's when I began to research.
And the one marked home, that's my house. So as you can see, I don't live in quite as concentrated of an area of the project as Carrie does. But what's kind of interesting about my situation is that my father-in-law did sign a lease. He did sign up the family farm. My husband and I then built a home on the family farm. My husband wanted to live where he grew up, where, my son is now the 4th generation to live there. And we weren't aware of the lease that had been signed when we built our house. When I did find out about the lease, the reason I found out is because where you see this black marker that's directly to the west, I discovered one day archaeological surveyors on that hill that's directly behind my house. That's only about 1,300 feet directly west of my back door. That's when I became involved in the project. And just a little disclaimer, because the property is under lease, and my husband is actually on the deed for the property, if he were to sign, we would get quarterly checks for the project. So I could be on the other side of this very easily. But we have chosen, based on our morals, that we don't want that money. So the closest turbine to me then is that one to the north, and that's about 3,400 feet. So just kind of what happened to us in Schuyler County. That is, Carrie and I live in Schuyler County, and as Kelly said, it is a 175 turbine project, 400 megawatts. It actually does go into 2 counties. The county to the south of us is Adair. And so there were first reports of the wind project in 2011. Now, I didn't live in the area in 2011. I was away at college. So this is stuff we found out by going back and doing research when we learned about the project. But the only articles we could find from 2011 had stuff to do with the bat population in our area. After that, there's nothing. There's nothing in the news. There's just nothing. What we discovered from looking at commissioner meeting minutes and agendas was that in March of 2016, the wind developer introduced themselves to our county commissioners and just said, "We are looking at your area." 2-3 weeks later, the first lease for the project was signed. And then, again, nothing. So for 2 years, no news articles, no public, nothing, like no involvement, just people quietly signing leases. Well, exactly 2 years later after the first lease, there's another mention of the wind project in the commissioner's minutes regarding a road use agreement. And a month later, our commissioners passed a road use agreement approving the project, no public comment, No news articles, very quiet. No one knew. So after Carrie and I got involved in the project, in May of 19, we found out that our county actually had been zoned in 1990 as the result of a landfill that wanted to come to the county. And so we asked at that time, we started asking, can we get a moratorium? Can we get something in place? To, can we get some zoning? Because turns out that our zoning did not allow wind energy on agriculturally zoned land. And the entire county is agriculturally zoned based on the zoning from 1990. And so come to find out, essentially, what happened is our commissioners passed this road use agreement, ignored the zoning, and then after we started questioning them, they went back and changed the zoning proactively and allowed wind turbines on agriculturally zoned land. There's a lot of detail, a lot of things happened in a very short amount of time. We won't go into all of that. So May we find out about the zoning. In July, our commissioners repealed and replaced our zoning and changed it. And then the next day, they received a permit application from the wind developer, and then on the 31st of July, the permits were approved. And so in August of 19, construction began, and December of 2020, official operations of the High Prairie, now known Renewable Energy Center, began. And so we have 2.2 megawatt and 3.45 megawatt turbines. So this is just a breakdown of the leases and easements situation. So it's kind of hard to see, and I'm sorry because it's small. But essentially, the percentage of the population of our county that signed up, 8.7%. The percentage of that population that lives within the county, only 276 people, 6%. And then kind of these numbers down here. Percentage of the population of Schuyler that was getting turbines, 1.6%. So they're the only ones getting significant checks. And right here, percentage of leaseholders with turbines living within 1 mile of a turbine, 0.8%. So similar situation to kind of what Kelly was describing. These people sign up that don't have to live with what they signed up for. And so what we're going to go through here is kind of what it was like to live with construction of the project. Because of kind of the ineptness of our commissioners, kind of what happened to us is what we consider a worst case scenario. We really haven't come across another situation that was so horribly dealt with. I don't know how else to explain it. We have no protections in place whatsoever. We have no complaint processes. It was a free-for-all. It's still a free-for-all. And so this is what our life is like now. So this is your picture.
You can flip through. All right, I'll be your tour guide. So this is the beginning of them running the underground line. They run an underground line. They run a fiber line. And so this is just somebody's field that they came in. This happened a lot just because of the time of year that it was. But they would go ahead and dig up drainage tubes, but then not replace them. So it caused a lot of flooding issues, a lot of access, to field issues. So even portions of fields that people were not using, the access to the fields and stuff would be flooded or ruined. This is also the beginning of an access road. This is also, I'm not for sure if NextEra has claimed this yet here, but there's many times that they will come in and they will talk about how each turbine uses 1 acre, right? So some of these images, you're going to see that quote-unquote 1 acre. This is also an access road. Basically what happens is it doesn't matter what time of year, they are going to bulldoze their way through what they're doing. So what happened here is we had a lot of rain. And so these access roads, which are fields, basically flooded. So we actually had one time where a cement truck got stuck, and they ended up cutting off the drum and dragging out the rest of the cement truck with a dozer. Now, that is somebody's field that hopes to plant that again. So those types of things happened a lot, but this is another example where they just laid something down, when the mud got too intrusive for them to continue. This is a batch plant, basically concrete. It sprung up kind of in the middle of nowhere. It was just a field. And so, concrete truck after concrete truck. Those, run to bases. They were beginnings for the substations. They were,
They built 3 of these throughout the county. So they started on the north end of the project and worked their way to the south. And so the first one was on the north, and then more in the middle, and then more to the south. And they do this because they want their concrete to be as close to where they're working as possible, so that it's in the trucks for a less amount of time. And so we got 3 of those.
Okay, this is the laydown yard. This is also, once again, a field. So this is actually on the way to my house. So I got the joy of every time, I left the house to go take the boys to school, I was met with, their, center of operations, basically. And so it is just nonstop traffic. All kinds of everything go in and out of the laydown yard. This is what they call a jump bridge. Basically, some of these bridges are not going to be able to withstand the weight, of the equipment and of the blade components, the tower components. And so these jump bridges come in, and it basically puts, this steel component over the bridge to be able to run those heavier loads over them. My biggest complaint is that when they do this, they close a bridge. There was times that they closed multiple bridges at the same time. So finding, routes into town, roads that they hadn't destroyed was interesting. This is also, I'm not really for sure what gives them the ability to do this, because it is a state road, but they would pop up these stoplights. And so you sit here and you wait, because you really don't know who is policing this. So if I run this, is somebody going to pull me over? But technically, like, our sheriff's department said that is not something that they would, and we saw their workers would run them all the time. So basically it was, on the other side of that jump bridge, at night you could see lights coming across. Daytime, it was meant to keep equipment running across. But it's just kind of another example of stopping your life. So this is the beginning of another turbine. So once again, another example of the quote-unquote 1 acre. This was a particularly big swath, and I still am not real sure why they needed to do this. I'm sure that there's a technical component to being able to level the land, but once again, they came in and just dozed. So this is a turbine base. So this is before the rebar is put in. So this is what those concrete trucks the closest one to us is 2,100 feet. So for 3 separate days, it was just constant beep, 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 concrete trucks backing up. And at night, where this is a 24/7 thing. So the amount of concrete is just insane, that goes into these bases. This is, example of a 1 acre. And this is right across from my house. So this is one of the days of just constant noise. So this is actually one it was trying to go to one of the substations. They had torn up this road significantly to the point where they got it stuck. So this actually sat for 3 separate days, blocking the road. We had my neighbor that lives to the north of this had actually contacted Terrigen at the time. Blattner was a construction company. Had contacted them, concerned because she was, if there was emergency vehicles that needed to get through, she was concerned that there would be, delay in the ability for people to get through there. And his response was, "You are collateral damage." So this is, well, it's going over a jump bridge, but these are the trucks that spray. The attempt is to keep the dust down. I think it's just kind of a facade to pretend like they're doing something, because it seems like once they go through, it takes 5-10 minutes for it to dry, and then you are just full of dust again. This is actually a black top. So we'll show pictures in a minute here that they tore up the roads so badly that the black tops were full of rock from then trying to fill, spaces, and so the dust was just nonstop. This is an example of a road. This is a turbine. So this is an access road to a turbine. This particular turbine is actually a family member of mine. He said he had about 15 conversations with the initial people with Terrigen about where this access road would go. And the way that the land runs, his concern was dividing his fields. And so they talked about where the access road would go. But once the dozer showed up, he had GPS points and had to stick with him. And so that road went straight through his field. They tore up and just dozed everything. So he now has a hay field on that side, and he has a hay field on that side. This is the same. Yep. So this is just an example of daily life. If you want to go anywhere, you leave early. You just never know when you're going to run into a train of this. And in reality, they didn't care. I mean, it didn't matter if they were going to shut the roads for 20 or 30 minutes. That was just normal life.
Well, they would park on the road like that.
Yes. This is a crane path. It's just another example of they shut down the road without any warning. I think that, it's potential. It takes a lot of effort to go into your road use agreements and really think of everything. So going through and really setting up, a system of notification, for the people in your community that if something's going to be shut down, if we're going to be taking a crane across, if blades are going to be coming through and we're not going to be able to go on this road this day, something like that. We didn't have anything like that, and the frustration, and the anger and the arguments and things that came from that were completely avoidable, but it takes a lot of time to go through your community and make sure that those things are taken care of, before something like this would start. I took this picture and it felt like a disregard for our area, but this is kind of what they did. Going uphill in the middle of the road, not really caring if somebody's coming the other way. But it was just kind of another example of what they did every day. Another train. This is an example of a crane path. So obviously, you had a planted crop that they just dozed down. And there at this stage there is a system for being able to repay for crop loss. A lot of like what we had is when it really came down to paying, the payment that they received was not what they expected. It was really up to the company to kind of set that amount. These are just some pictures of towers going up. This one is about 500 feet from a road. Like we said, 24/7. The project doesn't stop. It runs 100 miles per hour all day, all night. It has one goal, and that is to get the project done. We unfortunately had a fatality with one of the rock trucks. It's hard to explain, going from a very quiet rural setting to this level of construction. We had multiple cement trucks and rock trucks flip over, run off the road. Multiple people were just pushed off the road. In this instance, a lot of our rock trucks ran in threes. So it was kind of like a freight train that you just stayed out of the way. You really get into, with our boys, we just don't go outside. We do not play outside anymore right now, just because the danger was so present, I think, that it just, You just didn't. So in this instance, it was 3 of them running, in a row, and that last one went to turn and didn't stop, didn't look, and she ran right into it, and she was killed. It's another example of a cement truck that flipped over. I think there was 4, yeah. Which I will say, something that they did not mention to us as a positive, but your body shops might see a lot of, there was a lot of smashed up vehicles from them.
Okay, so this next part is going to be better roads. We heard over and over and over again that our roads were going to be so much better with all this money. So for the entire duration of construction, every single one of our roads had these signs. Rough road, 35 miles per hour. And it's things like this is why. So what would end up happening is that from all of the heavy equipment, the numerous loads, our roads started to break down. And so then the State Department would come through and they would dig this up. They would take out the asphalt or whatever it's made of, and they would then fill it with rock. So like here on this picture, you can see if you look more towards the back, they've already done that part. It's filled with rock. I'm sure they came back later and dug this part up and put more rock down. So we were driving on roads that were like half paved, half rock. Very safe, very, very safe. Just another example of our crumbling infrastructure. Another example. This is where they walked a crane across the road. And the entire road looked like this. But those cranes are so heavy that, gosh, I think I took this like 2 or 3 days after. It just immediately just destroyed the road. We had a lot of this, where your road was almost gullied or warped. You had to pick the right lane to drive. Another example of half rock, half paved. This is a gravel road. I believe it started as gravel. That they then took those pallet boards and put down because, as Carrie said earlier, we had a lot of rain when they started construction. I think we even had some flooding, and so this was their fix to keep the project moving forward. And as you can see, if you can tell, this is next to the new transmission line that they built for the project. Another example of using pallets as a road. Lots of issues with water movement, because when you do this kind of thing to the road, water does not know where to go. We also had situations like this. So they cut this road out because it was too steep for the blades to make it over the top, so they just cut the top out. This road stayed like this for about 2 years. They have, well, we'll call it fixed it at this point, but it's very rough. It eats rock like crazy. I was on it just the other day because it's actually a heavily traveled road because it's a cut through between 2 blacktops, and it will never be the same. And then, so they did come back, and so our situation where we live, so our county maintains our gravel roads and our dirt roads, and then the state maintains our blacktops and then our highways. Now, we are a very small county, only about 4,600 people. I think we're the second smallest county in Missouri. And so we don't get a lot of money anyway for road upgrades or road maintenance. But the wind developer ended up giving our State Department a little over $2.8 million to help upkeep our roads. So after road construction finished, the state came through and they did an overlay on all of the roads that had been torn up like you guys saw in the other pictures. So essentially what they did, they came through, they laid a cold mix down, they sealed it. So they finished that last summer. And so I took these pictures last week. this is what our roads are starting to look like. It has been less than a year since they overlaid, and our roads are already falling apart again. You can't see it as much now that they overlaid. The roads look smooth, but they're not smooth. You can still feel where those places were dug out or where those gullies were. Our roads honestly need completely redone. I'm not an engineer, but this ain't it, guys. Here's this. I took this picture just the other day as well. And another example. So these are 4 pictures, but this is every single road that was affected is like this. And then this is an example of a gravel road that is still having water drainage issues. We see this a lot as well. And so, better roads. So the next part is what it's kind of like now to live with the turbines. So the biggest thing that people hear about is the sound. We all the time are hearing how companies are saying the turbines are not loud, they won't disrupt your life. They also are always saying how the newer turbines are quieter. And to steal a little quote from Kevin Martis, if their technology was as good as they say that it is, they soon will be sucking sound out of the air. And so... So this is a picture of the turbine closest to my house. I actually took this, so the turbines went into operations December of 2020. I took this the spring of 21, so over a year ago. So they'd only been in operations about 4 months. The first 3 months of operations, we had a ton of ice and a ton of snow. And so I started to notice this, because I drive by this turbine every day, that there was this weird, like, shadowing. So I got the binoculars out. So these are, if you see the turbines up close, they have, like, these little finger things on the edges of the blades. They're supposed to be sound reducers, is what I understand. That's what they claim. This was a few months after initiating operations, they started breaking off. So this is their fix for sound, and it lasts a really long time. Okay, so hopefully this video will play. Turn it all the way up. So that's just a short, and there's more, but we deal with this every day. And even though we've amassed hundreds, we might even be in the thousands now of videos because we try to document this as much as possible, you can never pick up what that really sounds like in a video to what it really sounds like to your ears. Something else that you can't pick up, like I said, that first winter they operated, we had a lot of snow and ice. Last February, we had a ton of ice. And when they get iced and it's on the blades, it's not the sound that's so bad, but it's at 2 o'clock in the morning when you get woken up because your house is vibrating. How do you capture that on a video? I don't know. But I have messaged Carrie and been like, I assume you're awake as well because my house is vibrating, so I'm sure yours is, because she has it worse than I do. And that's how it goes. Some people, it depends on the terrain. It depends on the weather, whether it's hot, whether it's cold, humidity, depends on precipitation. Ice is the absolute worst. It's just the worst. And they don't shut them off when it's icing. Some companies say that they do, ours do not. It is so frustrating because there's nothing that you can do about it. And you don't sleep when it's like that. Oh, sorry. Wrong. I mean, you guys want to listen to that again? So, we know you guys have had some issues with your commissioners thus far. But when it comes to, we understand that NextEra is promising a 1,500-foot setback. That's what the promise was to our community as well. There's nothing in writing to make our developer, there was nothing to hold them to that. So there are, unfortunately, a couple homes that are closer to turbines because they weren't on their maps. They were new homes that weren't on their maps. That's how that turbine was going to be about 1,300 feet from my house because they didn't know my house was there. So if there's issues, what is your recourse? So Carrie and I, we try to cause them problems because they cause us problems. And so these are a couple of quotes that I got from one of their lawyers about my complaints. And they said, in response to your concerns, Ameren has confirmed the turbines are operating as designed. So they're not denying that they're loud. They're not denying that they're obnoxious, but they're admitting that they're operating like they're supposed to. And they said no abnormal operation of the turbine's components resulting in elevated sound levels at the Wind Energy Center were found. Now, we did get visits from a couple of their operations managers. Conveniently, they came on a day where the wind was barely blowing. And with the way that the temperature and the humidity was that day, it was a quieter day. Oh, and they were off at Carrie's house that day. So, of course, not loud. They also went on to say that it was constructed with accordance with the building permits that were given by our commissioners and by the Missouri Public Service Commission, and they're going to continue to maintain them and make sure that they operate as designed. So this is 1,500 feet from a house. Again, these are about 500 feet. You guys are going to have taller ones. But that's 1,500. Same turbine, same house. And this flagpole is misleading because it got broken off, so it's actually shorter than like a standard flagpole. But again, here's the corner of the house, same turbine, 1,500 feet. That's that same turbine from a mile away. Gets a lot smaller. And here is it next, this is a mile away from this house. Same turbine, it's a mile away from that house. Just to try to give some perspective on distance. And then, hopefully this will play. So this video's grainy, you can't really see it, so hopefully the sound is decent for you guys in here. But this is from my front porch. It was the only turbine operating, and it is a mile away. Hopefully it will show like how loud it was. So again, that's one turbine from a mile away. Okay? The rest of the project was off that day. They were doing testing. So imagine all of them operating and making that sound. Again, it's hard to describe, but it's like there's this fullness in the air. It's like, even if you can't hear the individual like blade movement, it's like there's just noise everywhere. Oh, did it again. I believe this is a video of just the lights. So 175 turbines blinking. Ours are not all synchronized. We also do not have the ALDS system. Light pollution is a real thing, and it significantly disrupts the night sky. Here's another video. This is shadow flicker. This is inside Carrie's house. Oh, it's Carrie. Oh, is it? Never. Sorry, it's Carrie's neighbor's house. So in this video, the turbine that is putting shadow flicker on that house is a little over half a mile away from that house. Just to give some perspective. Another shadow flicker. This is Carrie's house. And that turbine in that video is 2,100 feet from her house. This is just a picture of one of the 3 substations that we got as a result of the project. So we got 175 turbines, we got 6 Met towers, 3 substations, and 2 transmission lines. This is turbines and the newest transmission line. And if you remember that picture of the laydown yard that Carrie talked about earlier that had all the buildings, so they returned it to its prior glory, as you can see. So this is just last week that you took this picture. This was planted with beans. If you can see the rows, compaction is real. And that also was covered with rock. I'm very surprised that the landowner even attempted to plant this. But he's trying to grow some beans. This is kind of hard to tell, but this is where they walked a crane. So this is a hay field. So I'm kind of standing. They walked the crane here, but if you can tell on this side, I don't know if you guys can see that very well. So they didn't reseed. So you got hay over there, and you got weeds over here. Okay, the next one.
Okay, she prepared me this time. This one's got me before. I'm going to talk health a little bit, and this can be kind of a touchy subject. But I will tell you that I have zero patience for anybody that says that health effects are not real. It doesn't take, a scientist, a doctor, for me to know that something's wrong with my kids. This is my son, Jax. He's my youngest. This was after one of the first storm that we had after they were online. This does not happen every day, but this should never happen. What we're experiencing at our house, I would say, is more of these things. I know that there's people that experience a range of issues. It is not every day because wind energy is pathetic. So there's many days that they, are not turning, that they're not producing, and therefore we do not have issues. There are many, many people that have, the headaches, the ear pain, the vertigo. But I would say with us, sleep disturbance is something that I never really had on my radar. And it is something that even if we are not woken up by the noise, it is something that the next day we feel exhausted. I don't know why. I'm not really, like I said, I'm not a doctor. I can't really, understand what exactly is going on. But I know what it's like to just feel exhausted. I think the biggest frustration, and the same thing that I'm hearing here, is that there's no process for complaint. There's no way that I can get relief from that. I have asked the wind company if we have had days of noise, would you please, is there a way that I can say, can you shut them off so we can sleep? Just one night. No. No is the answer. If there was a way, for your county to give you a process for complaint, make sure that you are taken care of. Make sure that if things like this are happening, that there is recourse for you. I think that is the basis of what your commissioners owe you, is a way to protect yourself. Do you want to talk about this? Sure. So this is, I'm not for sure if some of you have seen some videos, but there is a doctor, her name is Mariana Alves Perea, and she is actually from overseas. But she has done a lot of research into infrasound, and it's not exactly just into wind energy, but it's just from, anything that produces infrasound, and then she has looked at its effect on the body. So I contacted her at the beginning of this, and I said, would you just look at, the turbine locations for our project in proximity to homes? And could you give me an idea of what we're looking at? Is this something that's, we're looking at potential, areas for harm? Is this something, are they spaced out enough? Are they going to be far enough away from my house, to reassure myself, that we were not going to see, any of the health, complications that I was concerned about? So she actually did a 12-page statement, and I will make sure that you get all of these documents so that anybody can view any of this stuff. But she was actually the one that did, one of the first images down here of homes, versus turbine locations. So at the end of her statement, this last paragraph, is her closing statement. And she said, in my opinion, it is highly likely that in each and every one of these homes, citizens' health will become severely impacted. And she spent 12 pages explaining why. So for all of the people that you have from NextEra telling you that you'll be fine, their profit is determined by you believing that. There is tons of research out there that says differently.
So anywhere that wind goes, it comes down to a property rights dispute, participating versus non-participating. Well, this little video, it's just audio, is from Worth County, Iowa. It is their zoning administrator there. And what he has to say about property rights, I think that it's just put so well.
By which such development shall occur. Our guiding principles for the development of details in the proposal began with the concept of protection of property rights of all landowners in the county, coupled with recognition of need for economic development supportive of revenue for essential services, but which is also consistent with the goals and strategies of the County Comprehensive Development Plan. Specifically, we began with the notion that all landowners have a right to enjoyment and use of their property. We recognize that some landowners may or have chosen to give up or sell certain rights on their land, including the rights to be free from effects of commercial wind turbine. That's evident in the effects language contained in the wind easements agreements signed by those landowners. It's their privilege to give up or sell those rights. However, that privilege ends at their property line. The rights of adjacent property remain and should not be taken away because a neighbor sold theirs. Nor should a government regulation cause those rights to be infringed upon or taken for the benefit of their neighbor or a commercial entity using that neighbor's property for their own financial gain, unless that property owner also chooses to give up or sell those effects rights. We believe that's a basic principle throughout the United States. It's for that reason that we established the sound, shadow, flicker, and safety setbacks at the property lines. Our rationale document goes into that a little bit further.
So your neighbor does not have the right to infringe on your property if you're non-participating. Worth County has some wonderful documents that outlines how they came to their decisions. They did research for over a year or 2 years, a long time, very well thought out. So if you need more information about that, I think you can get it all online. So we have a very interesting environmental situation with our project. We have the endangered Indiana bat. There are endangered Indiana bats in other project areas, but what's interesting about our project is that we have a very high concentration of maternity colonies. So they come to where we are in the summer and they have their babies. So I found a lot of this information through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. They consider our plan area to be 113,000 acres. So every time that they're telling you it's only an acre that's affected, ours is 175 turbines spread out over 2 counties, and it's 113,000 acres. Now, the wind company says that the total impact area temporarily was about 1,300 acres, and permanent is 279.3. That's still more than an acre per turbine, because that temporary impacts, all that acreage is impacted permanently, all that heavy equipment. So it's actually closer to 7.5 acres per turbine, per the developer. The developer and the public utility that now owns our project were told that it was one of the worst locations in Missouri for wind development from an endangered species perspective. They were also not aware of any other single wind project permitted in the United States with this number of federally endangered maternity colonies. So they had nothing for comparison. They had no idea how this was going to impact the bats. And then also, while tree bats are usually the hardest hit, there's no study showing the impacts of wind turbines on the Indiana bat and maternity colonies. And so this is important because they kept saying it was going to be okay. But bats are an imperative part of our ecosystem. If you farm, you need them for pesticide control. And so what happened in our project is that within a very short amount of time, they killed a lot of bats. So from 2009 until the project began operating, so 11 years, they had only recorded 3 Indiana bat fatalities by wind turbines. In the first less than 3 months of our project being under operations, they killed 8. Now, those numbers sound really small, but these are human beings that are going out and looking for bat carcasses on the ground, okay? So how many have they missed is what sticks out in my mind. This is just, we like proof, right? So this is just proof of the land impacts, because we get questions about this. So that's just the document stating that. So in May of last year, the company was given a take permit to kill a certain number of bats. And it said that this take permit was for the production of renewable energy in an environmentally responsible manner. That makes no sense to me, doesn't go together. And then they were given mitigation techniques to limit bat deaths. So if the wind was above 5 meters per second, then they could run. If the air temperature was 40 degrees or above, they could run. These recommendations were supposed to limit bat kills. They didn't, obviously, because they killed just 8 Indiana bats, but they killed 179 from April 1st to August 31st. That's the number of carcasses they found. Because they killed so many bats from April to June, nightly operations of our turbines ceased on June 21st of last year and continued through the end of October. And even with the turbines shut down at night, they still found bat carcasses underneath the turbines, which I find very interesting. Also, for 3 months of their spring monitoring from March to May, they found 52 bird carcasses. Most of them were hawks and 1 bald eagle. So that was our first bald eagle death. So they went ahead and they did some estimations of how many bats they potentially killed in that first year of operations during the summer. And this is with nightly shutdowns from June to October. If you add all those up, it's over 5,000, potentially. Okay, they're wiping out our bat population. Because they killed so many bats last year, our turbines have been off at night since March 15th. Thankfully, we get some reprieve and we get to sleep. I love bats. I love bats now. But to me, when I started doing research and I found this information and I realized how we were overlooking endangered species to build wind projects that are supposed to be, quote, like saving the environment, like that makes no sense to me. And then people always want to talk about money. It's always about money when wind projects come to town. So this is just our levies for our county. So we pay property tax by December 31st every year. We pay it on our acreage, on our houses, on our vehicles, etc., on our animals. So this is just what our total revenue for the county has been for the past 5 years or 6 years. Can't do math. And so, yes, we did see an increase in our county revenue. 2022, they had just shy of $4 million, and last year they got $7 million. So we got about a $3 million increase. But people want to say it was all from the wind project. But what they fail to recognize is that all of our levies went up last year. So that was my money, that was Carrie's money. We paid into that additional $3 million as well. So all of our levies went up after the project went into operations. So this is just on my home itself. So the market value of my home is the $323,935. We have a residential tax rate of 19%. So the assessed value that my levies are based off of is $61,550. And so at the end of last year, for just my house, this is just my house, this isn't our acreage or our vehicles, I paid just shy of $4,000. That on just my house was an increase of about $120 from the year before. We actually paid even more in taxes because we have vehicles and we have acreage, but it was just easier to do just the house. So my out-of-pocket went up. Shouldn't it go down if we're getting all this tax revenue from the wind project? And then, interestingly, the turbines get a nice big cut off the top on their taxes. So I just did a little example over here. If my house was a turbine, then I would have only paid $2,600. I would like a tax break. More so, this was interesting. So after the project went in, this just happened in April of this year, so we haven't seen the result of this yet. But two of our taxing entities, one of them increased their levy, they doubled it, and the other one, I now have a new levy for a fire protection district. We were just we paid dues for volunteer fire department. And so based on my last year's taxes, my taxes are going to be $4,200 for just my house. So I'm going up another $200 because they increased my levies again. And then this kind of goes with the first speaker. I forgot his name, I'm sorry. Jonathan? Okay. So they like to say that wind is beneficial and low cost. And so these are quotes from the rate case and from the Missouri Public Service Commission, from the public utility regarding the wind project. And so they say that wind is beneficial and low cost. That's the first thing they say. And then they say we have all these production tax credits and we're gonna generate additional energy that we can sell. And so it's a low cost for our customers. And then they go down further. It's all on the same page in the document, and then it says, we filed this rate case because we accrued costs to serve customers, and it says to recover capital investments for wind generation facilities. So what they did is they applied for a 12% increase of their rates to pay for they actually bought two wind projects, ours and another one in Missouri. But they applied for a 12% increase, which would have given them an additional about $300 million in revenue. The Public Service Commission said, we'll give you 8%. So they got an 8% increase to pay for their project. The High Prairie project cost $617 million. They are expecting about $400 million from the production tax credits for that. And then this is last year's number, but because the turbines were shut down 28% of the time for the bats, they predicted they lost just shy of $10 million. I think they're going to get that back from their 8% increase. I don't think they're going to be hurting too bad. So this just happened back in June. So the public utility, they own the project that we have to live with, but we actually are on the co-op. So we don't see any of the electricity from the public utility or from the wind project, and thankfully we don't see that 8% increase as well. But what happened is back in June, we had a week where it was really hot where we live. I think it was hot here too. It's hot everywhere right now. But so the co-op was having issues. They had some unplanned outages. But one of their co-ops sent out this letter, and it said, it listed the reasons, including declining wind power. So it's not reliable when it's hot. And then they also recommended that people not charge their electric vehicles, which that's a whole nother issue. We don't have to get into it right now, but I just thought this document was very interesting because the CEO of the co-op, he did a podcast a couple months ago, and what I found really interesting is that he admitted in this podcast that Wind is not reliable, and when it's really hot or when it's really cold, when their peaks are coming either in winter or summer, the co-op counts wind as 0. They rely on natural gas, coal. I don't think we have nuclear on I think we have a hydro, but they count wind as 0 because they don't expect it to show up when they need it. And I found it really interesting that a CEO was saying that, but he seemed, what's the word, level-headed and just had common sense. So this is the capacity factor for our project. This is its first year of operations. So capacity factor is like how much it actually shows up, essentially. So if we were just relying on the High Prairie project to electrify our homes, we'd get electricity 22.89% of the year. As you can see, they obviously really dropped off in June through October when they had to shut down at night. But even so, those numbers are lower anyway because the wind does not blow as much when it's hot outside. And so even the best month they had was December at 46%. So we would have had electricity 46% of the time. They also...
I was listening away. Okay, well, this is actually, well, there's a few slides of this, unfortunately, but they actually had to replace parts before they even went online. So this is actually a nacelle replacement in October of 2020. They didn't go online until December of 2020. You can go ahead. Gearbox replacement also before they even went online. Blade replacement before they went online. I don't even know what's going on there, but something's not right. Yeah, obviously we're missing something there. So this was actually this past year. These had actually been off for several months, though, at this point. And they were blade replacements. But I think the most significant thing with these is that I didn't realize how much damage they do when they come back. And so when they put these in, I think a lot of farmers think, you know, it's in, it's done, and then I get to farm around it for the rest of my life. And, you know, so this is, once again, destruction on the fields. Yet this time around, the contracts do not have crop replacement involved. So if there's damage done, there's no recourse. And the problem with these things is they break. So it is constant. It is constantly replacing. It is constantly doing this construction back on your fields.
Can they tell how many trucks are in, how many trailers?
Oh, trailers? Well, yeah, the one, I'm not sure on this one. The one by my house, we watched, there was about 14 trailers just for the crane components that came in. And of course, they came in from out of state. So when we're talking, you know, reduction of fossil fuels, I don't know that that's exactly going in the right direction.
Oh, yeah. So this turbine did not go into operations when the rest of the project did. It had bad blades. And so they replaced these blades in August of 2021. Oh, April of 2021. April of 2021, those blades are still there. So we're over a year later, those blades are still on the ground underneath that turbine. We don't have any repercussions for that. We don't have any kind of like decommissioning. You know, they literally can just leave this stuff. We have another blade that's just been in a parking lot for 2 years. There's nothing anyone can do about that.
Okay, so this is just briefly something that we've been tracking. There's a county to the east of us that has a company that's trying to go in there, and at the beginning of one of their meetings, they were talking about, you know, these setbacks. So these are your safety concerns. And so one of the big things that they always say is that it's very rare that something happens, so you don't need to be concerned with that. So your setbacks for things like blade throw, for ice throw, for fires, that you don't need to be concerned because they're very rare. So that was in September of 21, I believe. And so we decided to just start tracking. And so this is also something that I will give you. But this is just, since then, some of the examples of the rare instances that you don't need to be concerned about. So the fact that this stuff happens is a reason for you guys to have sufficient setbacks. Now, people that have signed contracts, unfortunately, have signed away their ability to protect their families. But you as non-participants did not give them the right to take that protection away. And your commissioners owe you that. This is not rare, and this happens all the time. I think we're up to 72. Yeah, and that's just the ones that we can, that easily you can track and you can find articles and you can find images and stuff of. Yeah. So this is actually a section that was in my volunteer fire department dues envelope. And it's basically saying, due to the dangerous nature of the newly installed wind turbines, our fire department is unable to endanger our volunteer firefighters by responding and actively engaging in emergencies stemming from the turbines at this time. I feel super safe. So in any instance, if there's a fire, our firefighters, which in all reality, I don't think that they should be put in danger. But the plan, is to let it burn. We do not have the equipment. We do not have the ability to fight those. And I'm not really sure we don't have anything at our county, that says, if my hayfield burns up, are you going to pay me, in that year? Are you going to pay me when that happens? Are you going to, make sure that the project, pays me? I don't care if they pay me 2 years later. I've lost that revenue now. So if something happens, where there's a fire, our firefighters are instructed to basically, there isn't a distance. We've asked for it. But basically they say, let it burn. And when, if it reaches a distance that is safe enough for them to approach, then they will try to keep the fire back. And that's your hope. If it's your home, if it's your fields, that's your level of protection. So these are all things that your county can do better than ours. You can put things in place to make sure that you're not left to this.
And so this is my house. The turbines that you see are 1+ miles away, and I am probably, I was trying to stand about where that turbine was going to be that they didn't put there. So somewhere like 1,300 to 1,500 feet. I'm to the west, those turbines are to the east. So that's my house next to turbines that are 500 feet tall, and they're a mile on past my house. These are the two turbines that are the closest to my house. The closest one is about 3,400 feet. This is Carrie's house. So her house is all the way down here, and then anywhere from 2,100 to 10,000 feet. This picture, to me, has always said a lot about how my pregnancy brain.
Well, I think that this and the next picture, I think that it gives an example of what topography does. So this is also my house. This is standing to the east. So our field, is a hayfield kind of comes down. So this is, I wish I was intelligent enough to do like some kind of trick for, photography, because that's, many times what people have claimed. This is just what it looks like standing east of my house. And how this happens is that turbine is that much higher up. Its ground level is that much higher up than my house. And so, the sound travels down in that cone. And that is why I think our house has been so impacted. And so when you talk about setbacks and you talk about, a certain distance, every situation is going to be different. Every house is going to be impacted differently. This is not just, this distance is safe. This distance is going to, mean no noise. This is, means you're going to be able to sleep. It means you're not be able to sleep. just because topography has so much of an impact. So the only way to protect from this is to set them all back sufficiently. Give everybody the opportunity to not have that. All right, so in closing, there's just a couple questions. What is your quality of life and peace worth, and should it be for sale? So as your community decides what is right for you, I think as you start to think through the money and you start to look at the realities of these projects, the money starts to not look so good. Your life and your peace and the 4 hours that I've spent in your community, your people are worth more than what wind energy is promising you. So take the time, demand from your commissioners protections, demand that they value you more than NextEra. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's amazing how powerful testimonies are, and thank you again for taking the time to come and share with us. I know we're pushing 9 o'clock. That's the thing with wind energy, that it just takes so much time to try to explain it all. It's just, you just can't do it in a short fashion. So I'm going to try to breeze through these real quick. They hit a bunch of the concerns, so I don't want to dive into those again. But effects easement, I want to talk about this. See effects easement 5.2. So this is in the lease that these people signed. It says owner grants to operator a non-exclusive easement for audio, visual, view, light, flicker, noise, shadow, vibration, air turbulence, wake, electromagnetic, electrical and radio frequency interference, and any other effects attributable to the wind farm or activity located on the owner's property or on adjacent properties over and across the owner's property. NextEra is admitting these things happen from wind turbines. Okay? It's not made up. NextEra admits they happen, and non-participants shouldn't have to deal with these effects. Get regrouped here. Is NextEra a good neighbor? I want to jump down there. This article from 2017, Big, Green, and Mean, a wind energy giant attacks small town America. Guess who that big, mean, and green wind energy company is? The one knocking on our door, NextEra. Suing 5 small rural communities because they're not getting the money that they want. A Reno County commissioner. Reno County commissioners did not sign the permits. NextEra tried to come in there a couple of years ago. That's down in the Hutchinson area. A Reno County commissioner stated this. This is his quote. Reno County went through a robust process of a series of public meetings, consultant information, and staff reports. It took months and months to get fully informed. I would say at the end of the day, I could not trust NextEra to do anything besides what was in their best interest. There are a lot of stories of them not being honest with residents. That was a Reno County commissioner, and they ended up not signing, and NextEra was not able to come in there. One thing I do want to point out is the high voltage power lines and stray voltage from underground power lines. That is not talked a lot. I know we talk a lot about the wind turbines, and that is the main concern, but this power is going to be put on power lines, and those have to go somewhere, and those have negative effects as well. Increased crime. Up in Nebraska, when their wind turbines got built, the construction workers were not the most upmost citizens. I spoke with the county attorney up in Nebraska, in this county in Nebraska, and she said she's been really busy, and she's been busy with prosecuting the construction workers that came and built the wind turbine development. So, Belleville, you can expect higher crime if this comes in. Least concerns. I know the majority of people here probably are non-participants, but we don't want this to spread. We don't want this to come in, but if it were to come in, we don't want it to spread. So just FYI, if they come knocking at your door, you're going to have a 90-year land partner if you sign, and you don't know who you're going to be dealing with because these wind developers sell every few years. They have access to all that land in your lease that you signed. You will have strangers on your land for construction and maintenance. They will leave gates open. Animals will get out because it's happened. If you want to sell your land, you have to get permission from them. The inflation rate is very minimal. In this one, it's about 2.5%, give or take 0.5%. We're at 8% right now, folks. That $15,000 in 5 years, what's that going to be? Not very much. It will change your land forever, so consult an attorney before you sign anything. So I want to get into what's going on right now and how our county needs to protect us. Here in Kansas, Sedgwick, Wabaunsee, the Flint Hills region, wind turbines are not allowed. Ultimately, to protect citizens, the health, safety, and welfare of them, we need a 10 times the turbine setback. We need regulations on sound, shadow flicker, environmental testing, decommissioning, and property value guarantees on your homes. Multiple counties across the country have put these into effect. Other ways that you can do it is land use zoning. Ottawa County, McPherson, and others have designated certain land in their area to just so certain areas would be agricultural land and non-industrial. Counties with proper setbacks. Our neighbors to the north have done a great job, some of them, of getting proper setbacks. These are some of them. And this is what we're trying to share with our commissioners, right? 1 mile setbacks to non-participating dwelling, 1 mile setback from property line to non-participating land. You can go through and see that. So we're wanting our commissioners to take heed. Other people have put in proper protections. So this is where we're at. Just this Monday, my husband Kurt went to the commissioners meeting, and we've been struggling, folks. We've been struggling with the commissioners, trying to get them to put protections in place. So we propose that the commissioners call a non-binding referendum, so a vote of all the citizens in Republic County to do 10 times the wind turbine height setback from non-participants. So that would be a little over a mile based on these turbine heights. The reasons for that, we said the ballot box is the only private place to voice concern. Small community, as you know, this has already been a divisive issue in our community, and the ballot box is the only private place to voice your concern. None of the commissioners were voted in based on the stance on wind turbines. This all kind of came to fruition after they were already voted in. And 2 of our commissioners have conflict of interest. Commissioner Jurdo, his brother has a lease, and Commissioner Spleakall signed over a life estate to a relative back in September last year. 2 months later, a lease was signed with High Banks Wind. That's fine to do. We just believe the proper thing would be for them to recuse themselves. Then you're down to 1 commissioner. 1 commissioner making a decision for the next 90 years of our county just doesn't seem the right thing to do. So we are asking for the commissioners to put a vote on the ballot. We'll be going again on Monday to kind of find out what their thoughts are. The election is coming up August 2nd. District 1 seat is up for election. Harold Wilbur, who is here tonight, he has been attending many of the commissioner meetings. He has been speaking for protections for the citizens. So I just encourage you, if you live in District 1, which is, I believe, north of 23rd Street in Belleville, that township, and then the eastern third of the county, which is where this project would be. But know where the candidates stand on wind turbines. North of 18th. Thanks, Emma. So speak now, or you may be the next one up here giving your testimony. It won't be here in Republic County probably, but another county. And I would hate for any of us to have to do that. I had so much more I wanted to tell you, but I know it's getting late. I do want to share this. So everybody gets scared when they start talking zoning. You're going to take away all my rights. Zero regulation only works if people put the well-being of their fellow citizens above financial gain, right? We can have no zoning as long as everybody's going to treat their neighbor like you're supposed to treat your neighbor, Okay, zero regulation only works if people put the well-being of their fellow citizens above financial gain. And there have been people, we have great people in Republic County, and there's been people who decided not to sign a lease because of that. They did not want to saddle their neighbor with a turbine. All right, trying to get through it all. I think I'm going to wrap up. Before you leave, we'll open up for questions too. I know it's getting late, but feel free. I'm sure the speakers may stay around for a little bit. There's a book, Paradise Destroyed, over there. It's free. It's a great quick read to bring you up to speed on wind turbines. It was written by a South Dakota farmer and appraiser. Highly recommend it. Get brochures. There's a great handout just so you can get up to speed if you were approached by a wind developer of things to be aware of. Couple other handouts. Please sign up. If you're not getting our emails, please sign up to get our emails over there. If you feel so inclined, you can also donate to our efforts. It does take money to do stuff, unfortunately, but we appreciate you coming tonight. And I do want to finish up with a quote from, well, these are a couple other quotes too. I have never encountered a single person who said, I used to be against wind energy. Now that I've done all my homework and learned as much as I can about that, I'm going to support wind energy. Never. Not once. On the contrary, this is a one-way street. Once you learn the facts, you can only be against wind energy, and you can never be ever won back to the other side. Eric Bibler. Kevin Hickey said, had I known what I know now, I would have fought it. Ephesians 6 is one of my favorite passages in the Bible. Ephesians 6:14, the armor of God. Stand firm then with the belt of truth buckled around your waist with the breastplate of righteousness in place. I'm a fighter. I'm a battler, and I love that verse. Don't be deceived, folks. Don't be deceived. And a final quote from Carrie's son that she shared this week. It's telling me I need to shut up, isn't it? Carrie's son said, my mama bear will probably tear me up. She said, Mommy, he told her, he said, Mommy, I wish I knew what it was like before the terms are here because I know it was probably good. I wish I knew what it was like before the terms are here because I know it was probably good. I don't want our kids to say that, or your grandkids, or my kids. So please speak up, voice your concerns, and let's not let this happen in Republic County. I'll open up for questions, unless everybody's ready to go. Any questions, or if you need to go too, don't write questions.
I've been doing a lot of reading on this thing. It takes 100 of these windmills to do one coal plant. Now, originally, you're where the Supreme Court came down on EPA because they were making me lie. I'd rather see a coal plant than 250.
Any other questions, comments? Feel free to talk among any of our group, each other. Yes. Yes, well, they will make their own concrete plant, so this won't be some local helping. That's not going to be helping the local concrete. The water is an issue. Do you want to speak or not speak?
No.
There has been, they don't know where the water, to my knowledge, they don't know where the water is going to come from. Belleville doesn't have the capacity. The other towns around don't have the capacity. I don't know how they're going to get the water.
I can just tell you what they did in our project is they went to just landowners that have large bodies of water. Like we have a couple old city lakes and things like that that are now owned privately, and they paid those landowners or those lake owners per load, essentially, for the water out of their private bodies of water.
So I'm curious how you're doing clearing. Have they healed, or is there great conditions?
So when I look at our county, I think of just fractures everywhere. There are family members who no longer speak. There are friends, who
there's just, I mean, there's things that have been said that you just can't ever go back. And I think that, for myself personally, I used to do the PTO in the school. I was the president for several years. And, once your community starts to value money over my own time and my own investment, and decided to destroy my home, and one of the big things was money for the school. And so it became completely invalid, the time that I had spent and the money that I had spent all those years. And they just sacrificed me for that. And so I stopped doing that. And so I think that, one of the biggest things now is that there's just that underlying, instability that just, and it will never be the same.
Any others? Yes, here.
Next year, keep promising.
Okay.
I think it's promising that they're going to do sugar daddy. We're going to get good neighbor, and we're going to keep all these things. You need a new fire, we'll give you a new fire. We'll add on your library, whatever. They made all these promises. They're going to do the same thing. And then they keep those promises.
They didn't necessarily make promises like we'll buy a new fire truck or we'll build a building, but during construction, there were a lot of donations that came from the construction company and from the wind developer, to the 4-H, to the food bank, those kinds of entities. And then now that the project is done, I don't see the public utility making any donations to anyone. Yeah, I just want to speak briefly of what's happened in Marshall County. I asked Jonathan, I said, hey, what have they done in your community? He said, the building that they were renting when they had an office while the project was getting ready to go, they left. All he does is see next year trucks kind of driving around and they're going to be sponsoring something at the fair. I have no idea. I'm only waiting to see what next year is going to do at our county fair.
Well, one thing you need to be aware of, you need to ask the commissioners and be very forceful. Whatever next year promises, it's got to be good at faith. Because otherwise, I can promise you the world, but get me to deliver. Oh, no, I didn't say that. I don't know how many good administrators were at the meeting of the library. But that was the main thing that they kept going on. You'll get used to the noise, you'll get used to the flicker, all these things. You'll get used to it because they're running. And they kept bringing up how the money was a big driving off. And they're giving a commissioner this spoke there. And he said, oh, yeah, he said, we got bridges that we never would have done. They also, I think they did add on to the school. They really did some projects. Yeah, oh, yeah. But that was the whole thing. But I think it was all verbal. I don't think anything ever put down. And it scares the hell out of me. They're making all these promises, and our commission, they're not getting it down to paper how we're going to be protected. I don't think they've addressed any of that. What are we going to do about our grievances? And I've asked them about that, and no answer. I take that back. Next year, a lawyer did something. All evidence will be open. How many people have ever tried to sue a multi-billion-dollar company and have any results? There was a testimony of the county that spent over $100,000 trying to get into court. They never made it to court. They ran out of money, so they just gave up. Try to sue a multinational company like this. If it isn't in paper, you don't have it. Be very wary of it.
Think you're one here in the back.
Oh, you don't have to come back. I just want to wonder, how do you convince the commissioners to read anything you put in? I've listened to someone make fun of it.
So she's wondering, how do you get the commissioners to read or listen to you? Great question. We're trying to figure that out. I don't know. That's why we're going for the setbacks, right? Or to give it to a vote, let the people decide, right? So you've got two commissioners with conflict of interest. It's not right for them to make a decision.
Your third commissioner, his brother works in the Little Park.
Yeah.
So
Kind of could possibly be another conflict of interest.
Kelly, I just think everybody write letters to the paper, write letters to the committee.
Yeah, please do all you can. And that's why we said at the vote, it's nice to protect, but we got it. You got to stand up and speak now, like I said, or we're stuck with this for the next 90 years. So please, I know it takes a lot to go there to the commissioners meeting, but trust me, you get over it after the first couple of times. I've been through enough now. It's all good. Yes, you're not the only one. Yeah, exactly. They're just people just like you and I. So.
You don't have to say anything.
No, just your presence even there is good too. So. Anything else? Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to come and get informed. I so appreciate it. Speak your concerns and let's protect Republic County and its citizens.